We have a little bit of breaking news. A federal judge in California has just issued a temporary restraining order against the reduction in force attempts the administration might make, the RIFs, the layoffs. She says you can't do this, or I'm not sure if it's a she. The judge says you can't do this in a nation of laws. We had word just last hour, Ashley, that OMB Director Russ Vought wanted to lay off as many as 10,000 federal workers.
That's right. He has been very clear, not just since the beginning of this shutdown, but really since the beginning of Donald Trump's second term, that he wants to terrorize the federal bureaucracy, that he wants to reduce it, whether it's through initially DOJ or RIFs, or not appropriating the money that Congress has set aside for various agencies. This is his entire mission, and he saw this government shutdown as yet another opportunity. And that's what you have started to see the president and Russ Vought try to do. One thing that's interesting is because this is not something that is new or sudden, this is something that Russ Vought has been talking about since before Donald Trump even returned to power. You are seeing Democrats in this instance, for now at least, while the polls remain slightly in their favor, willing to stomach this, because you're hearing some of them say, if they don't try to, say, lay off federal workers or gut the federal bureaucracy during the government shutdown, they'll find another way to try to do it. So in some ways, it's emboldened Democrats to feel like they have nothing to lose because they believe that this has long been the master plan, shutdown or no shutdown.
Is this sort of a welcome bit of news, not just for Democrats, but for Republicans, Annie? Were they looking forward to Russ Vought laying off 10,000 people in the middle of a shutdown?
No, I mean, I don't think Republicans in Congress particularly want that. That would be, I mean, a lot of those people would be some of their constituents, but mostly what I've heard from Republicans in Congress is concern over the troops getting paid. That is their primary focus. And they really are encouraged that Trump said he wants to pay the troops and have brought up the possibility of passing legislation to do that. Even before he said he would do it without them having to do anything. But I haven't heard much talk about the plight of federal workers from Republicans in Congress. Mostly it's just blaming Democrats for the shutdown and concern over the troops. The rest, it doesn't really come up in conversations with Republicans.
How do Democrats push back against that, Val?
I think, let me just say this. I believe that Democrats are spot on in their fight to protect the American people and their health care, to keep their premiums from doubling, tripling. That is the right thing. But you're right, it is painful for Democrats because Democrats are totally focused on taking care of the American people. Republicans in Congress are totally focused on satisfying Donald Trump. Look, Donald Trump and DOJ and the chainsaw already laid off or fired, if you will, or forced to leave, people that were forced to leave, over 200,000 people. So the layoffs that he's threatening are nothing new. Donald Trump gets everything that he wants. And so what we are seeing, what we are experiencing, the Republicans, again, they have the White House, the Senate, and the House. Donald Trump gets everything that he wants. This shutdown is occurring. People are being threatened because that's exactly what Donald Trump wants, and the Republicans are willing to let him have.
More federal workers are losing their jobs as the government shutdown and this political standoff drags on. Some of those firings now on hold as a federal judge in San Francisco ordered the administration on Wednesday to immediately stop the layoffs, ruling that they're unlawful. And in her decision, the judge said that the planned layoffs were politically motivated, adding, quote, "The politics that infuses what's going on is being trumpeted out loud in this case." So the ruling pauses the layoffs of more than 4,000 federal workers across 7 agencies. And that began last week. So those include workers at the IRS, the Treasury, cybersecurity workers at the Department of Homeland Security. Also, hundreds of CDC employees. Health and Human Services has seen nearly the entire special ed staff and also the special ed staff at the Education Department. And White House Budget Director Russ Vought says he's just getting started.
We're definitely talking thousands of people. We want to be very aggressive where we can be in shuttering the bureaucracy, not just the funding, but the bureaucracy, that we now have an opportunity to do that. And that's where we're going to be looking for our opportunities. I think we'll probably end up being north of 10,000.
Meanwhile, on the Hill, Democrats and Republicans seem as far apart as ever.
If my Democratic friends stick to their guns and say we're not going to open up government until you tell us your plan, and we want to make sure it works for fixing the health care delivery system, they're going to be waiting. We're going to be shut down a long time.
Ever since Trump's big, beautiful bill was passed, we knew this was happening. They've refused to negotiate, and anyone thinks that tomorrow they'll suddenly start negotiating, I think is smoking what is illegal in many states.
Okay. Joining me now in the group chat, Jasmine Wright, White House correspondent for Notice, Doug Heye, Republican strategist, and Megan Hayes, former director of message planning at the Biden White House. I'm going to start with my partisans on messaging because I was watching Republicans this week, Mike Johnson and others, and I heard two lines of talking points. One is, this is Chuck Schumer's fault, this is Chuck Schumer's problem, and you need to put pressure on him to end it. And the second one was, Democrats are being unreasonable, and everything you see that's happening is their fault. Do you think the voters are actually seeing it that way?
I think it depends on who we define as the voters. Both parties are talking to their bases.
Independents. That's who I'm always talking about, right?
Well,
because it's not like Schumer's the most beloved Democrat ever. So I don't think there's a bunch of Democrats that are like, oh yeah, we should, fight for him.
I don't think it's clear at this point, and part of it is they're not necessarily paying attention to all the machinations in Washington, and there are so many machinations in Washington constantly, especially.
But you don't think it's left Washington, like with the airports and like if you go to a national park right now, like the doors are.
But that's about it, and that was true in the 2013 shutdown.
Okay.
When I worked in the House of Representatives, Obama's administration blocked off the World War II memorial, for instance, and we saw national parks being closed. That happens in every shutdown. The reality is we always have a situation in these where one party or the other says, look, we've done our job. We passed a clean CR.
Yeah.
Now it's up to you to do your job. You're not going to hold us hostage. This time, the difference is it's Republicans who are making that argument. It's usually the Democrats.
Although, gentle plea from me to all messaging, please stop saying hostage. Like, what are we doing? Post October 7th, stop. Jasmine Wright, I want to go to you for a second because Russell Vought is like, yes, excited. This is my time. Is this an extension of the Doge project? Meaning a window of opportunity to hack away at what he calls the bureaucracy?
It's definitely a window of opportunity. I don't know if it's an extension of the Doge project because it's not being run by Elon Musk. It's being run by Russ Vought, who, unlike Musk and other folks at Doge, has studied these type of issues, what you can do in a shutdown, whether or not you can do briefs, for years and years and years, not just the last 4 years when Donald Trump was not in office, but for years before then. This has kind of been his thing. And so I think that, yes, you're seeing this White House feel like they have an opportunity. They're saying it out loud, and you're seeing them act on it. I asked one White House official whether or not they believe, or the intention of doing these rifts was to set a precedent that kind of exists in the gray area, right? Layoffs during a shutdown have never happened. And they said it's not the intention, but if we are doing it, then so be it. And we believe that we are on the legal right foot here.
Which is why we're talking about the courts so much.
But Russell Vought didn't study hard enough because a judge yesterday just said that it was illegal to do this. So Democracy Forward filed a lawsuit, and now it got put into place that they are now able to lay off these people. It's against the law. I know they don't believe in the rule of law, but the American people still do. And this just goes to show you that the court system is still the backstop for what this administration is doing.
But in the meantime,
until I guess it gets to the appeals
people are feeling it. I want to play an example for you. In the CNN town hall last night, Senator Bernie Sanders took a question from an audience member. Here that is.
We're going to do everything that we can to bring an end to this terrible shutdown, which is hurting you and which is hurting 1 million federal employees and millions of people who use federal services. But also, we have got to be cognizant that if Trump wins this fight, our healthcare system could well collapse and tens of thousands of people could die every single year. I don't want to look at it like a political fight. We're going to win it because the American people are on our side.
What struck me about this is you have this woman from Mississippi. She's like, I can't get a home loan because the department that is supposed to do that work is not just airports and national parks, right? And she was saying to a Democrat, look, help. And I want to ask you, it's fine to have a plan to go in. What is the exit plan out?
Well, I've always said you shouldn't close down the government unless you have a plan to open it. So I don't actually know what the exit plan is. I think that when people start getting their notices about how much their health care is going to go up, and when people miss their first full paycheck, I think both people will act a lot more, both sides will act a lot more swiftly.
A federal judge in California just reminded everyone of what it means to live in a nation of laws, something Donald Trump and his loyalists in the GOP seem to have forgotten. The court's temporary restraining order blocking layoffs of more than 4,000 federal workers that Trump wanted to fire represents more than a procedural hiccup. It is a full stop to a political stunt disguised as government reform. Russ Vought, Trump's budget director and self-appointed executioner of the so-called deep state, openly admitted that he wanted to fire thousands of career civil servants, not because of budget necessity, not because they were doing poorly at their jobs, but because he sees them as obstacles. That move goes beyond governance or efficiency or anything. It is just revenge politics, plain and simple. It's an attempt to hollow out the institutions that actually make the country run. The IRS that processes your refund, the CDC that monitors outbreak, the people in the airport towers who actually want to make sure that you can lift off the ground easily, and the cybersecurity teams that defend against digital attacks. When the judge said that this move was politically motivated, she didn't even need to elaborate. Trump World was practically bragging about it on camera. And let's be crystal clear, Republicans in Congress aren't pushing back for a reason. Their silence is deafening, but it says a whole lot. They'll talk about paying the troops, a safe, patriotic talking point, while ignoring the livelihoods of thousands of federal employees that they claim are the enemy of the state. Instead, they're busy recycling talking points about how the shutdown is, well, it's Democrats' fault, it's Chuck Schumer's fault, as if voters can't tell who's actually holding the knife and every branch of government. This is the same playbook they've used for years and years now. Manufacture the crisis, blame Democrats, and hope that no one notices the wreckage left behind. Meanwhile, Democrats, for all the pain of this standoff, are actually standing on principle this time. They're fighting to protect healthcare, to keep premiums from skyrocketing, to make sure that federal agencies stay functional and accountable. That's not partisan gridlock. That's what governing is supposed to look like when one side still believes in governing and in democracy. As Bernie Sanders pointed out, if Trump wins this shutdown battle, the damage goes far beyond job losses. It extends to a potential collapse of the entire healthcare system that could cost tens of thousands of lives every year just in healthcare, and that's it, let alone all the other things it could destroy. The GOP loves to talk about law and order until the law orders them to stop breaking it, and then they continue to break it, of course. They claim to be the defenders of the Constitution, yet Trump breaks the Constitution every day, and yet the moment a judge actually enforces constitutional limits on presidential power, they cry foul. Oh, it's these rogue judges, the Democrat judges. The truth is, this ruling exposed what's really going on. The Trump administration's effort to weaponize bureaucracy cuts as political payback. For now, the judiciary has drawn a line, but the bigger question is whether the Republican Party will ever rediscover its own or ever draw a line at all in the future. Every time they cheerlead another reckless stunt from Trump's orbit, they drift further from reality and from the Americans they claim to represent.